Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Just Another Car Show. Are you a Walmart's over Gelson's, Aldi over Whole Foods type of person? You're probably a shrewd investor. You're probably very careful where you put your money. If you're one of those types of people, you should probably look to invest in the new Genesis GV80 and their lineup of SUVs. This car is the baby brother of the Bentley Bentayga, literally designed by the exact same man, but only a third of the cost. When you park the Genesis GV80 next to the Bentley Bentayga, the cars are nearly indistinguishable. The big grills, the nice lines down the side, and the casual looking rear end are all a product of Sang-Yup Lee's work. And Genesis really made it a point to compete with the luxury brands on the market today. When Genesis showed up to the luxury brand market, they made it a point to be very unique. Sang-Yup Lee did an awesome job introducing the Genesis lineup with unique, futuristic features that we only kind of see in concept cars. And my favorite being the turn signal that was applied to these SUVs. The turn signal actually moves past the headlight and down into this little side vent, which is kind of a nod to the futuristic concepts we see and those old European cars that needed the turn signals on the side body. Moving past the turn signals and the uniqueness in that, they also did a good job applying uniqueness to these wheels. A lot of luxury cars these days have aggressive spokes, sharp edges, or if you're a Mercedes, you just have a lot of lines. They created this interesting netting that is in the center of the wheel that extends out into each spoke and gives this car one of those head turn types of looks. Again, with the turn signal, with the wheels, with the big brakes, and down the whole side of the car, you just feel like this car is unique in the market it's sitting in. And the rear of the car is also super unique. They kept it minimalist and very clean. There's not even a latch button. The button for the rear trunk is actually in the windshield wiper on the back of the car, which, once pushed, allows you to check out all the beautiful, unique features on the inside of this car. Just like how Genesis kept the outside of the car very unique, the inside of the car is also very unique. They needed to create their own luxury brand, so the interior of this car couldn't look like any other luxury car you'd hop into. They gave you a circular shift knob with a few really nice little details. You can actually see through the top layer of the shift knob and it looks almost crystal. The other interesting thing is when you're driving at night, different colors illuminate this thin piece of plastic here, letting you know if you're red for park or it matches your accent tone for the interior of the car when you shift into drive. It's a really nice little design feature. They give you this scroll wheel for your navigation system and for your infotainment system. It also has a touch feature here on this pad, but it's not worth using when you have the scroll option. Your button for your volume is here as this, again, really interesting little crystallized scroll wheel. And the buttons for navigation are here on your center console, but you also can touch the screen here. The infotainment center is also really nice with this home screen look. It gives you all the basic information you're gonna need. It'll show your media that's playing, the time, the date, where you are, and even shows your directions over to the right side. And then with a simple swipe to the right, you get access to all the crazy features in this car. And the price point that this car is at, the amount of features that you get within this unit is absolutely obscene. The adjustments for interior design, driving, volume, all the features you'd expect out of a very, very expensive car are in this Genesis GV80. You can control the climate up here on this display, but you can also just do everything manually down below. And besides having a very fingerprinty display here, this is actually a very intuitive display and control system. It kind of reminds me of some of the ones in the Land Rovers and the Range Rovers, but again, this touchscreen has vibration patterns when you hit a button, so when you're driving and you need to quickly turn on the AC for your glutes, you can just feel the vibration through the screen and you know that everything's back on. You have all the buttons for easy navigation through right here, radio, media, setup, navigation, map, and because this is an ultra luxury vehicle, all you need to do is go auto, pick the temperature you want, and you'll be cruising in cool comfort. When you get in the car, if you don't like how your gauge cluster looks, you're gonna simply change your drive mode. This car has 4 different drive modes and a custom feature. As you switch between drive modes, your center gauge cluster, the gauges themselves change because they are digital. So snow looks different than eco looks different from comfort, and obviously comfort looks different than sport. But that custom mode, you can choose whatever you want those gauge clusters to look like. You can flex with the 3D designs that they have in here, which are really interesting to the eye. It took me a second to get used to, but that 3D dimension is utilized when you're using a navigation system because they'll actually put the turn that you're making next further back behind the turn you're making currently. So even though it took a second to get used to visually, the depth in the 3D display here is really nice, really unique, and really interesting. And if it bothers you, you can easily turn it off in your main hub. The last thing Genesis did to be super unique on the inside and make their car stand out is they are the only car manufacturer that doesn't have a third spoke in their steering wheel. They got this weird oval shaped thing going on. And at first, I just didn't like it. I didn't like the design. I didn't like how it looked. But as I use it, as I drive, especially as I use the lane keep feature on this car, I love it. I love the feel, and I love that it is a big, bulky wheel. It really makes Genesis stand out as a brand by having their own type of steering wheel. But the front is not where this car shines. Where this car really flexes and puts down the paint is in the back seat. These rear seats in the GV80 punch way above their price point. And they were actually rated the best rear seats for the entire class of large-sized luxury SUVs. These seats also have a few really cool features. I got a middle cup holder with a little bit of storage in the middle. Once I put my Grey Poupon smoothie in the middle here, I need to kick back a little, so I just recline in the rear seat. And oh, the sun's coming through. Pull up the shade in the rear seat here with the GV80. Moving down the door, they gave me actual wood trim here, 3-point sound system in the rear seats. Again, this is a rear seat car. You get highs, mids, and lows. The quality of metal buttons here are just way out of the league, especially with the price point of this car. And as I move down into the center of the rear seat, I notice I have all my climate controls here. And a lot of cars give you climate control for the rear seat. The vents in the rear change, and you have different AC components from front to back. But remember, your butler's driving this car. You should have complete control of the climate in your luxury SUV. The adjustments that you make here in the rear seat change the climate for the entire car. Your butler's not in charge. You're in charge in the back seat here. You're in the back, you gotta check those stocks and bonds because you're driving in luxury. You got power outlets right below your AC climate controls. You have chargers for an iPhone with a USB plug, or you have a full 115 volt plug for your laptop or anything that would need a little bit more power. Right after your butler drops you off and needs to go pick up your new piece of furniture, there's a beautiful button here on the side of this seat that, if pushed, folds this entire row down. And if you look in the trunk of the car, those buttons are accessible from the trunk. If you get the option with the third row though, they'll add more buttons to the trunk and you can automatically fold this row and the rear row of seats. So there's tons of storage in this car. And as much as I love sitting in this seat, I still gotta get to the front seat and we gotta take this car for a drive. Driving the 2022 GV80 in luxury. Remember, once you've had that Grey Poupon smoothie, you're gonna hop in, you're gonna realize you're sitting on a massaging driving seat. So if you're paying for a driver, the driver will be comfortably massaged in the front seat. If you're driving, you're gonna get that tush nice and massaged while you're cruising around. The GV80 comes with active noise reduction that you can set inside the center display unit. And it honestly is a very quiet, comfortable ride in the car. Driving around in LA, there's a lot of road noise, beeping, yelling, etc. People on the street. It was very almost alarming to go back into my daily driver and realize how quiet and comfortable the ride had been in the GV80. Another nice feature of driving the GV80 is when you need to set a navigation point, you can simply talk to the GV80. And I know a lot of Siri, Google talking applications are not that great, but the GV80's navigation dictation feature did not mess up a single time. So 100% shooting from the field with the voice feature for the navigation. So now let's say you're looking forward to driving in your massaged seat, but your car's just parked a little too tight to other cars. Well, no worry, Genesis thought of this. On the key, there's a physical button that you can press and hold to move your car forward and back before getting into drive. It can squeeze you out of tight parking spaces, which is what Genesis planned when they designed this car, especially for people who live in places like New York and LA and have tight parking situations. Once you've hopped in your GV80, you're going to turn it on and notice that you have more than enough power in this day and age. Back in the day, an SUV like this might come with almost 400 horsepower and a big V8 as the first option and a smaller V6 as the second option. But in this day and age, when we're saving the planet, we got the 4-cylinder base model with 300 horsepower. We can upgrade that engine to a V6 3.6 liter 375 horsepower engine. With those engine stats, the gas mileage on the GV80 was a little disappointing. We had the base model 4-cylinder 300 horsepower engine and still only got the high teens, low 20s for average miles per gallon. The GV80 comes with an 8-speed automatic transmission, which, if needed, you can go into manual mode. They give you little paddle shifters onto the side of the steering wheel. So the transmission actually made very smooth shifts even when we were in that manual mode and kept the comfort driving to a maximum. The suspension in the GV80 is a new electric suspension technology that Genesis developed for their luxury brand. It's designed to preserve comfortability against, quote, road contingencies. Basically what they do is they have forward-facing cameras that intake the road information, which then is processed through the car and helps the car make adjustments when necessary for a more stable movement through obstacles. Steering is a really interesting experience in the GV80 because the chonky wheel. Genesis is going for this oval-shaped steering wheel, and at first it is kind of weird, but secondarily, they're in a very competitive market. They're in a market with a lot of other luxury brands that have already been established, and Hyundai is trying to create this Genesis brand, and they need small nods, small things they can do like the turn signals in the steering wheel that will allow their brand to stand out and be different from the pack. All in all, driving the car was really nice, but the best experience was sitting in the back seat. There was a day where Andy and I sat in the back seat and Sam drove us around downtown LA, and I felt like a superstar. I was reclined in the back seat, leaning back, eating snacks. You know the boys here at Jax don't drive that many comfortable cars, but the GV80 is one of the ones that we would put for its price point, the driving experience, and the riding experience especially were one of the best ones money could deliver. The Genesis concept as a brand was not introduced until 2003 as an extension of Hyundai. 2007 was when we saw the first Genesis model hit the road. 2013 was the second Genesis car. It wasn't until 2015 that Hyundai decided to take the Genesis concept very seriously and create the brand in its own entirety. They hired designers from Audi, BMW, and Lamborghini to help push the Genesis brand forward. And it wasn't until 2021 that we finally saw the GV80 hit the road, and it did so making a huge impact on the car market. Consumers are now super confused. Why would they spend 160 grand on a Bentley Bentayga when they could spend 55 to 75 on this Genesis GV80? And the consumer still gets the same quality, comfort, and design for only a fraction of the cost. We at Jax believe it's better to spend 55 to 75 on this luxurious GV80 versus 160 on the Bentley Bentayga. And you can still afford to pay a driver for 2 full years. And if a driver isn't really your speed, you can still cruise around in comfort in the Genesis GV80.